There's a smell that every human being on Earth recognizes. You knew it before you could read, before you could name colors. It hits you on a sidewalk, in a forest, through an open car window, and for 1 second, your entire body relaxes. Scientists call it petrichor, the smell of rain on dry ground. And for almost a century, the fragrance industry has tried to do one specific thing with it: own it, bottle it, patent it, lock the formula in a vault, and charge the world to smell like a Tuesday afternoon thunderstorm. There's a story that gets passed around in chemistry forums and perfume blogs about a man who actually pulled this off, who found a way to own the smell of rain itself and made a fortune doing it. Here's the strange part. The story isn't entirely true, but what actually happened, the real fight over who gets to own a smell, is so much weirder than the legend. Corporate raids, stolen formulas, a multi-billion-dollar industry that has spent 80 years trying to imprison something that, by its very nature, refuses to be caught. Let's talk about the molecule wars. The legend goes something like this. Sometime in the mid-20th century, the same era that gave us Tupperware, nylon stockings, and 100 other newly patentable miracles of modern chemistry, a perfume chemist becomes obsessed with one question: what if you could bottle the smell of a storm? And according to the story, he finds it. He isolates the molecule. He patents it. And for decades, every rain-scented candle, detergent, and air freshener on Earth quietly pays him a royalty he never has to explain. It's a great story. Forbes cover-worthy. The quiet billionaire nobody's heard of, sitting on a patent more valuable than a gold mine. The only problem? It never happened. Not like that. There is no single person who owns the patent on rain. And once you understand why that's impossible, the real story gets a lot more interesting. The molecule mostly responsible for that rain smell has a name: geosmin. It's a compound produced by bacteria in the soil, and humans are almost unerringly good at detecting it. You can smell geosmin at concentrations so low they're almost absurd to describe. Some researchers estimate that, relative to a shark detecting blood in water, your nose is roughly 200,000 times more sensitive to the smell of rain. Camels can smell it from miles away and use it to find water. Evolution built every one of us to detect this exact molecule before we could see or hear the storm coming. It is, biologically speaking, one of the most important smells in human history, which raises the obvious question: if it's that powerful and that universally loved, why hasn't anyone actually managed to capture it? Here's where it gets genuinely strange. Geosmin isn't some lost secret. It's commercially available. Chemists can synthesize it. You can order it. And when you smell it in isolation, it doesn't smell like rain at all. It smells like wet dirt in a vial. Just mud. Not the storm. Not the relief. Not the memory. That's the trap nobody talks about. Petrichor was never really the smell of one substance. It's the smell of a situation: humidity, temperature, mineral dust, plant oils, ozone in the air before lightning even strikes. You can own every ingredient and still not own the experience. The word petrichor itself is younger than you'd think. It was coined in 1964 by two Australian researchers, publishing in the journal Nature. Before that, humanity had been smelling this for our entire existence as a species, without ever having a name for it. It comes from Greek, petra, meaning stone, and ichor, the mythical fluid said to run through the veins of the gods. Literally, the blood of gods, striking rock. Someone clearly felt strongly about this smell. Now here's where the real money enters the story. You've probably never heard their names, but 4 or 5 companies control most of the scent in your life: your shampoo, your laundry detergent, your favorite perfume. These companies don't just make perfume. They create the underlying scent molecules and formulas that get licensed into thousands of consumer products. You'd never connect to a fragrance house. And because you genuinely cannot patent a smell created from nature, geosmin existed before any of us showed up. The real fight isn't over rain. It's over the synthetic molecules these labs invent from scratch. Take one famous example: a lab-made molecule that, decades ago, didn't exist anywhere in nature, and single-handedly created an entire category of perfume: the ocean smell. That fresh, clean, slightly metallic sea breeze, scent in half the colognes on a department store shelf? That's one molecule's invention. Whoever controlled that Molecules patent controlled an entire aisle of the fragrance industry for years. Not rain, not flowers, ocean, a smell nobody on Earth had ever associated with the sea until a chemist invented it in the lab, and the whole industry copied the idea. And once a molecule like that proves it can make billions, the fight to protect it stops being polite. There have been real lawsuits over exactly this. In one case, a major luxury conglomerate was accused of quietly building its own production facility to manufacture scent formulas that fragrance houses had spent years and millions of dollars developing for them. The accusation: the new formulas were just subtle modifications of the originals, close enough to avoid breaking a contract, identical enough to avoid paying for new development. The fragrance houses were, understandably, furious. Then there's the human side. In one case, a former employee at a major Swiss fragrance company was accused of stealing confidential formula data and selling it to a rival. Perfume formulas, it turns out, attract the exact same kind of corporate espionage as software code or weapons technology. Here's the deeper problem the entire industry has wrestled with for decades. For most of history, the only protection a perfume formula had was secrecy, but modern lab equipment can now reverse engineer almost any perfume by analyzing its exact chemical makeup, meaning the old method of just don't tell anyone stopped working. So the industry pivoted. Instead of relying on secrecy alone, the big players started patenting the synthetic molecules themselves. The lab invented compounds that don't exist anywhere in nature and therefore can legally be owned. One fragrance and flavor company alone holds nearly 900 granted US patents, locking down specific molecules so tightly that competitors legally cannot touch them, not for 20 years. Sometimes longer once you count renewals and follow-on filings. And unlike a viral product or a clever marketing campaign, a molecule patent doesn't fade with the trends. Some of these scent compounds have stayed locked up and profitable for decades, quietly inside thousands of products you've used and never thought twice about. But here's the twist that makes this whole story even messier. Several of the world's biggest fragrance companies are now under investigation by antitrust regulators across multiple countries, accused of something even more brazen than patenting a molecule. Regulators suspect these companies may have secretly coordinated pricing, divided up customers between themselves, and even agreed to limit how much of certain fragrances got produced, essentially deciding, behind closed doors, what the whole world would pay to smell good. Investigators reportedly carried out unannounced raids at company offices in multiple countries, looking for evidence. This isn't a story about a quirky inventor anymore. It's a story about how much control a handful of laboratories quietly have over something as universal as smell itself. Which brings us back to where we started. If you can patent the ocean, if you can patent dozens of synthetic molecules worth more than their weight in gold, if companies can get raided for allegedly conspiring over how much the world pays for fragrance, why has nobody ever actually managed to own the smell of rain? Because the smell was never really one thing to own. When a raindrop lands on dry ground, it physically disturbs geosmin and plant oils sitting on the soil's surface. The impact also traps tiny air bubbles inside the drop, which travel upward and burst at the surface, flinging that scent into the air around you. That's the actual mechanism. It's not a fragrance sitting in the dirt waiting to be sprayed into the air. It's a tiny, violent, beautiful physical event happening millions of times across a single rainstorm. There's also ozone in the mix produced by lightning well before the rain even arrives, which is part of why some people swear they can smell a storm coming before they see a single cloud. A leading independent perfume house put it best in their own research notes on this exact problem. Smells like petrichor, old books, or campfire smoke arrive wrapped in weather, in memory, in an entire situation, and they simply cannot be isolated because they never existed in isolation in the first place. So the closest the entire multi-billion-dollar fragrance industry has ever come isn't a copy of rain at all. It's a completely different invented molecule, the same kind of ocean trick from earlier built to evoke the feeling of a place, rather than literally recreate it. That's exactly what happened with the synthetic ocean breeze molecule from earlier. It succeeded, not because it smelled exactly like the sea, but because it evoked the idea of the sea so convincingly that the entire industry adopted it. Which means, in a strange way, the myth we started with the man who owned the smell of rain was never going to be true. Not because nobody was clever enough to try. Companies with billion-dollar research budgets have tried. It's because the thing we actually love was never the molecule. It's the whole moment, the dry earth. The static charge in the air beforehand, the temperature drop, the memory of every other time it happened to you. You can patent every ingredient in that moment and still not own a second of it. So no, there's no secret billionaire quietly collecting royalties every time you smell a thunderstorm. But the Real story turned out to be something almost better. 100-year arms race between brilliant chemists, ruthless corporations, and one of the only smells on Earth that has successfully resisted being owned. Every other scent in your life, the ocean breeze in your cologne, the fresh linen in your detergent, the signature notes in a perfume, that costs more per ounce than gold. Every one of those was built, owned, and fought over in a courtroom somewhere. Rain is the one that got away, and maybe that's exactly why we still love it. If you want the next one, the synthetic molecule that secretly defined an entire decade of perfume, let me know in the comments. And subscribe, because some stories are worth chasing all the way down to the molecule.